I've never heard more people than right now telling me, Andrew, I never thought I would have these concerns about my country. I never thought I would be wanting to diversify my money or even move my family overseas. Today, I'm going to walk you through 8 real-life concerns that I hear time and time again so that you know what people are thinking about. You can prepare accordingly. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of the best-selling book, Nomad Capitalist, available on Amazon. Also the founder of the company, Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Let's talk about 8 real-life things that I hear on a routine basis from people who want to go offshore, who are concerned. And one of the things that I did when I started Nomad Capitalist many years ago is I said, I want to speak to the people who may have never considered this stuff before. My family and I have talked about the changes in the world, how more countries will become competitive. We've been talking about that for a quarter of a century. But most people haven't been thinking about that. Even some pretty smart, highly successful business owners and investors, they've just been going through and just assuming, hey, the US or Australia or wherever they're from is the best place to be. They haven't given this thought. And then you had a pandemic, and now you have rising taxes, and now you have this war on success going on in the West, and many other things that are bringing people to attention about what we've been talking about here for a long time. And so the first thing that I hear, financial concern that makes people want to go offshore, is a concern that actually makes people wonder if they can do it. And that is my family, are my business partners on board? Because they realize that without that, it's just not going to work. And so while not a financial concern of its own, it definitely is a concern that if someone realizes, hey, I'm paying 50% in taxes and I'm not getting that much for that money, or hey, I think that it's going to be a lot more expensive to sell my business in the coming years with these new tax hikes, or whatever the case is, you want to make sure that if you're ready to make a move, your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your business partners are going to be on board. So it's a lot more difficult if you're leaving one person behind. Most people just aren't going to do it, first of all, but there may be some tax implications in that with, having your family all over the world, or with business partners being in different countries. That can be difficult. In some cases, it can even blow the whole deal. So you want to check in with where you're at on that. Obviously, if you're single, it's not so much of a concern, although single people do have business partners as well. But you want to make sure that everyone is on board. Now, the second concern people are sharing with me more and more is, as we see the numbers coming out, inflation. People are worried about keeping their money in the bank. They're worried about what is happening with inflation. And by the way, by extension, what's happening with the stock market, especially in the US, in that inflation is creating these higher and higher stock market values. And so that's definitely something people are worried about. One of the things that they're really worried about is the fact that they're getting 0 or even less than 0 interest in the bank on the money that they're keeping liquid. We've talked about why, if you're going to be going out and getting residences and citizenships, you probably want to keep some money liquid in the bank for a while to show that you have money, more so than in a brokerage account or in a crypto exchange or in real estate. And so people worry, that money is being frittered away. One thing that I talk to people about, for example, in the Caribbean, St. Lucia has extended its $250,000 bond investment, where you put $250,000 into a bond for 5 years at 0%. Almost no one takes that deal because they'd rather make the $100,000 donation than invest $250,000 at 0% with $30,000 in fees, because they're so concerned about inflation. And so what otherwise could be a good deal where you're reducing your sunk costs, inflation is just pushing people away from that. Now, concern number 3 is one we talk about a lot, which is rising taxes. People are concerned about taxes going up in their country, capital gains tax, income tax on a personal level or a corporate level. People have started to ask about the global minimum tax, and I made a special video about my thoughts on that. I don't think it's something you want to worry about today, but you do want to be aware of it, and you do want to start preparing for it as they move these things through. Sometimes these things come through very quickly, sometimes they stall. This does seem like it has some momentum. So rising taxes are a concern. Number 4 that people are concerned about is just tax uncertainty. Again, how do I plan my business? One thing I learned at a very early age is the market likes certainty. Even if it's bad certainty, there's some value in that, because now you can plan. Hey, this guy got elected. Okay, we know taxes are going up. Let's plan accordingly. And so a lot of people are just concerned, how do I grow my business? This, to me, is one of the biggest things that I see people struggling with for years, even if they weren't saying it, is that when you have uncertainty, whether it's with taxes or regulations or whatever else, you are probably going to stall, whether you know it or not. And what I often see happening is someone moves their business overseas, or they move their stock portfolio overseas, and they cut their tax ties with where they're from. And now they really take off, because now they're uninhibited, and now they're paying 0% or 5% or some rate of tax that does not feel so confiscatory as what they were paying before. And it really lights a fire and gets things going, because now they can get out from under the uncertainty and just feel compelled to create, compelled to grow, compelled to step up to the next level. And so tax uncertainty and uncertainty in general is a big issue in terms of what's the Fed going to do, what are the tax rates going to be. All those financial uncertainties are a problem. Number 5, what people are also concerned about in non-US countries is extraterritorial tax. Now, is this everyone? No, but I have heard from a number of Germans and some other folks in Canada and Australia who believe that there's a possibility that their country will institute some kind of citizenship-based taxation, which basically means you'd have some version, if not the full version, of what the United States already has. You move overseas, you've still got to report your bank accounts, you've still got to phone home basically and tell the IRS or tell the tax authority about all your income. There may be exclusions, there may be exceptions, there may be carve-outs, there may be things you can do, but you're probably still going to be paying something. I've talked about that and how some larger legacy brand European countries could say, hey, it's our values. Everyone should pay something. We don't believe in paying zero, but if you're one of us, you'll pay something. So if you live in Dubai, that something may have to go back home. I don't think that countries are too worried if you're paying taxes somewhere, but this idea among the legacy brand, the G7, the OECD countries, is that you better be paying somewhere. It's more about you being miserable than them getting your money even. That's the problem in the Western world today, is everyone's looking into everyone else's pocket. And so extraterritorial taxes are something that people are concerned about. Another thing people are concerned about, number 5 or 6, is the wealth tax. People are looking at politicians, and Germany's been another one. There's an election coming up. Will there be a wealth tax? We just saw news out of Canada that the guy on the fringe, the Green Party, who gets a lot of news for a guy being on the fringe, quite frankly. I'm always reading about this guy, saying, hey, we don't want just a one-time wealth tax. We want an annual wealth tax. These guys got to pay up all the time. The UK, New Zealand even, Canada, lots of countries, South Africa, have talked about wealth taxes. Are they going to gain traction? Obviously, some things take time, but the sentiment that I see as someone who gets all the tax journals, who gets all the digests, all the alerts, our team and myself, we see a lot of talk about wealth tax. It is definitely out there, and I think it's something that a lot of people are concerned about. And again, will that be something where maybe some country eventually lets it slip? Hey, you know what? We're not going to tax your income if you live somewhere else, but wealth, that's something different. Another issue that people share with me, number 7, is rising property taxes. Now, this is something that more people in Europe have talked about, but also Americans, where look at what happened in Greece a number of years ago, where they raised property taxes by, I think, about 700% in some cases. Now, you don't have to take someone's property. You don't have to have actual expropriation. You couldn't give away these properties. People didn't want them in like inheritances. Please take it. Get it out of here. I don't want it. I don't want this obligation, because in a market like that, who's going to want to buy properties? You're stuck with it. You can't just offload it in a hot market. Who's going to want to buy that? Your property value is going to go down. You're going to be stuck with an albatross around your neck. If you don't pay, who knows what else they could do to you. In the U.S., they already have provisions where if you have past due tax debts, and this is not local taxes, that I understand, but theoretically it could be a thing where you don't pay the tax bill and we're not going to let you travel, right? And so that's why people are looking for a second passport. But rising property taxes is an issue, not only because of the cost. I have people who live in New York, a couple of them the last year. The property taxes to live in suburban New York are incredible. I mean, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year for some of these people. What does that do to the market? And as they're looking at opportunities overseas, I had a couple Americans mention to me, they watched our video on what I pay to own 5, now 6 different properties overseas. They say, I pay more in property taxes for one house than it costs you to run an entire network of homes. Now, not all of my homes are mansions, right? I'm not living in, 10,000 square foot mansions. So, you have to take that into consideration. But I know people who live in New York in very modest homes who are retired and getting the retirement exemption. They're paying $15,000 a year. So Are those taxes going to go up? Well, increasingly, if you have a nice house, that's been something that has been targeted in different countries around the world. Hey, how dare this guy have a nice house? That's something that they could use to hit you. The other issue, number 8, is bank bail-ins. And this is something, again, I've heard from people from Australia, people from Europe who were around for Cyprus, who are concerned that if the market cools off and if something bad happens, are the banks ready? Now, certainly the banks will say they've done a lot since the global recession to get ready. But then you look at a country like Australia, where they have these kind of vague provisions about, hey, if the bank has a problem, you could have a bail-in and what's going to be left. So what I think the answer, of course, to all these concerns is, don't have all your money in one bank. Don't have all your money in one jurisdiction. Now, legally report it when required. Obviously, this is not tax advice. You want to get the proper advice, which we do help people with our network of experts and accountants and lawyers around the world. But diversify yourself. If you have real estate, go to a safe haven. There's a reason people have been piling money into the Puerto Ricos, the Dubais, the Singapores, and other places over the last year. A lot of places I go to a lot of low-tax countries, people are pouring money in where they believe their capital will be treated best. And you're seeing that they're moving their capital from Western markets. Now, obviously, most people, they're born in one country, they spend their entire life in one country, that's where they're going to be putting their capital. And so you have a very hot real estate market in the US right now. Is that sustainable? I'll leave that up to you. But I think diversification is the issue to these problems. I think having a second passport so that when Germany, for example, comes out or Canada comes out and says, hey, listen, you're not allowed to go anywhere, whether it's physically or financially. You can't go anywhere. You've got a backup option. Everything should be done legally. Everything should be done ethically. I'm not suggesting anyone cut any corners, but those are real life concerns people have right now. And I think the answer is always is to go where you're treated best. Chances are if you have those concerns, you're not in a place where you're treated best. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next, they'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to learn some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.